Hello, friends. My name is Tim Erickson. I am with Simplo by Triplo. Today we're doing a Backdrop CMS contribution video. This is about how you and anyone else can help make Backdrop better. And today's topic is going to be testing core pull requests. To start out, let's do a really quick definition of what a pull request is. When a member of the Backdrop community or any open source community or any open source project user decides that they want to fix a bug or add a new feature, one of the features of open source code, what they do, the first thing they do is they create a fork of the project. And a fork of the project just means they take a copy of the project or the code wherever it is at that particular moment. We're going to be using GitHub today, a common tool. There's also a tool called Bitbucket. There are other ways to do this, but basically within Bitbucket or GitHub, you copy the repo, and now you have your own copy of the software. In theory, you could run that and maintain it yourself. You could fork the project and never go back to the original. But most of the time, especially in a project like Backdrop, you don't want to have to keep Backdrop up to date by yourself. You want to continue to use the core repo, the main repo, because lots of other people are helping fix bugs too there, are also helping fix bugs. So what you want to do is fix the bug that bothers you or add the feature that you want, and then you want to get that back into the main repository. So you make the changes, and then you create a PR, a pull request, and the pull request is basically asking a maintainer of the original project, will you pull my request, or my, excuse me, will you pull my change back into the main project? Then the project maintainer, of course, has to evaluate, one, do they want that bug fix and or feature in the main project? And two, if they do, does it work and is the code good? Because they don't want to introduce confusing or poorly written code that might cause problems down the road. On a very high level, the PR pull request process in Backdrop is similar to what I just said. Any member of the community that finds a bug has the ability to go in and fix it, and they submit a pull request. And then the question is, what happens after that? Because one of the ways you can contribute to Backdrop is by creating a pull request. Another way is by helping to test, review, or comment on various pull requests. So when a contributor submits a pull request to Backdrop Core in particular, and there's a little bit of a culture and process around this that varies from project to project, and even the project varies some from core pull requests to individual contrib projects in the Backdrop community. What we're really talking about today is mostly focusing on core, although most of what we say could or might also apply to contrib projects. Anyways, if you make once a pull request is submitted to core, it's probably in one of two stages. Sometimes pull requests are just proof of concept, where somebody has an idea for Backdrop, they write up a pull request, and they submit it, and really all they're looking for is feedback. It's not ready for final testing, and it's not ready for code review. They just want to know if people like the idea. And usually they'll say so in the issue queue. But oftentimes, and most of the time I think, once a pull request is submitted, that means that the original submitter is looking for someone to test and provide feedback. In the Backdrop Core issue queue, you need at least two different people to participate in a pull request. You need the original person and at least one other person to review and or test the pull request before it then gets reviewed by a core committer. Now, sometimes that process is divided into three people because we have somebody who submits the pull request, somebody who tests it, then somebody else who reviews it. The tester and the reviewer can be the same person, but they don't need to be. And this is a lot because there's a lot of us in the community that really aren't capable of providing an in-depth code review to determine whether or not the code is ready, but we are completely capable of testing to see if the pull request does what it's supposed to. And this video is all about how you can test. Just about anybody who's familiar and worked with Backdrop has the skills and ability to do testing in the core issue queue. Anyways, so finally, so a contributor has submitted a pull request. At least one member of the community has tested it and provided feedback. And once they mark it works for me, then either they or someone else can review the code. And if the code is good, mark it ready to be committed. Now, if that person that did the first review was a core committer, then a different core committer would have to do the final review. If it's anybody but a core committer, then any core committer can do the final review. Sometimes the core committer will make some comments and push the pull request back and say, hey, we need to do some more work, or we need to do some additional testing on this. But anyways, that's the basic process of getting a pull request into core. So what we're going to talk about is how you can help us test issues in the core issue queue. So to start out here, I've opened up the core issue queue, which could be found at, github.com/backdrop/backdrop issues. And if you click on that, you'll see we have over 2.3 thousand open issues in the Backdrop issue queue. Don't let that number scare you. This is all 2.3 thousand different things that people have identified over the last 6 years that they would like to change or fix in Backdrop. And it seems like a lot of things, but it's not that unusual in software this complicated. If we click on this, we'll also see that there are over 3,000 issues that have been closed. So we've got over a 50% close rate on issues that have been opened. Some of these issues that are open might be meta issues, which are issues that are sort of larger groups of issues. Some of them might be duplicates that haven't been caught yet. If we find duplicates, we try to close one of them. Some of them might be things that'll never happen. Some of them might even just be questions that people have asked in the issue queue. But the point is there are a lot of issues in the issue queue. And surprisingly, there's also a lot of pull requests. Actually, if we go back to if I click on Backdrop, or the Backdrop code repository, we can see that there's 634 pull requests currently submitted to Backdrop. And some of these are probably duplicates. Some of them are proof of concept that maybe are just something somebody submitted at some time. But a lot of these are waiting for review and can't get into to core until somebody tests them and reviews them. Okay, so I've jumped back into the core issue queue, and the first thing we're going to notice, or the first thing we're going to do, is try to find an issue that we can test. Okay, and if you're a beginner, this can be a little bit intimidating, and so hopefully I can offer a few suggestions. The first thing you want to do, or first thing you probably need to recognize, is that by default, the core issue queue is supported or sorted into the most recently updated issue. We can, sort this in different ways. Over here, we can sort by the newest issue that was created. If we want to see what the most recent issue, here's one that I created earlier today. This is a follow-up issue to another issue. Anyways, so we've had, it looks like 4 issues have been opened today alone. And that's how we get to 2,000 open issues, is that a handful of issues can be opened in any given day. Again, some are closed every day as well. But unfortunately, we tend to open them faster than we close them. But we think that's not a bad thing. We could also sort by the oldest. If we click on that, we're going to see the very oldest active issue in the core issue queue is from September 11th, 2013. So this is almost 7-8 years old. And we have issues that are this old that do get fixed and added into core. Some of these are feature requests, like I'm just noticing this, include the tour module in core. This was a request somebody made 8 years ago, and I don't think that there's really an overall desire to include the tour module in core. but nobody's ever closed this issue because it can always be discussed and rehappen. But anyways, just because there's 2,200 issues open, a lot of these might be things like this request for a particular module that may never happen, but we keep it open so that the possibility is always there. What I like to do is sort by the most recently commented on or the most recently updated. Here we go. This issue was updated 8 hours ago. This one 8 hours ago. This one 10 hours ago. So we can see that quite a few issues have been updated today alone. Maybe 10 to, well, could be even 20 issues have had some activity today. So there's there's a fairly decent sized group of people that are active in the issue queue, and they are discussing, reviewing each other's work, and testing issues every day. And if you would like to join us in the issue queue, here's a great way to get started, which is to come to the issue queue and to filter it. And these are all different filters, so we can filter by label. We have some projects, don't worry about those, milestones. The thing we're going to focus on today is a label, and we're going to look for the label that needs testing. PR needs testing. That means this issue has a pull request, right? It's not just an idea. Somebody has taken the time to write some code, and they've asked for others to test it. And it looks like we have 219 issues that are in that state of they have a pull request and they're looking for someone to test them. And now the trick is to find one that sort of suits your skill and interest level. And testing issues can go pretty quickly. Sometimes it takes a fair amount of work. And we just start browsing through them, and we can look at the titles. One might argue that it's sometimes good to test ones that have recent activity, because if they have recent activity, that means other people are engaged with that particular issue. Or we could, for example, go to the least recently updated issue that calls for testing, and we could start testing that. As I look at that one, use database independent calls to initialize the testing cache. Well, if that's giving you a headache, it is me too. I would have no idea how to test that. And that's probably why it's been there for a long time, is that we're lacking people with the motivation or skill to test that. But what I might do is go to some of these old ones and look for one that might like fix titles of menu admin pages. That seems like a pretty reasonable one. So I click on that. The first thing I'm going to do is sort of read the issue, see if it's something I understand and think I can test. I'm going to look to see if there's a pull request. Well, there should be if it has the needs testing tag. Although it's not impossible that sometimes the tags are incorrect. And if you find that, you should go ahead and make a note. Anything you find or questions you have while you're browsing in the issue, you should go ahead and contribute them, and you can help move issues forward in a lot of different ways. Okay, I've taken a minute to sort of scan through the issue. I still don't understand it exactly, other than what I think is happening here is that we want to change the title of this administrative page from something like My Menu to something like Edit Menu Links. BW Panda does a simple pull request. As we scan through the history, we find out that one or two other contributors comment on this. Quick Sketch is Nate Lampton, the forker, the founder of Backdrop, and also our primary core committer. He looks at the issue. He has a few suggestions. He actually submits an alternative pull request. I think he gets a little bit more feedback, submits another pull request. We can see the last pull request was I updated the PR a bit to also remove, some unnecessary calls. So basically he makes a few more changes. But anyways, we have a pull request that's been sitting here for over 3 years. It seems relatively simple. All it needs, the next step would be to do testing and then a code review. And so this seems like a really good issue to maybe move forward in the issue queue. Now, we've got two problems, one of which is we have two pull requests. However, we can see that one of these was made by BW Panda. When I hover over it, I can see that it comes from BW Panda's repository, and I know that he did the earlier one, and then Quick Sketch updated it. So as I hover over this, I can see that this is Quick Sketch's pull review, and this one is more recent. So that's the one I would want to review. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what I want to do here is look for a sandbox. And every pull request automatically generates a sandbox where you can log in and test the pull request. Now, I'm anticipating a problem because we chose to go with a very old pull request. My suspicion is that the sandbox isn't going to work. And sure enough, I click on it and I get this sort of Russian landing page, which is not something to be concerned and doesn't mean that our site has been hacked. This just has to do with the tools. I'm familiar with this page. I've seen it before. This is the tool we used to use to do our pull requests. But this pull, we're not using that tool anymore, which is partially why we can't get the pull request. So normally what I would do is go back to the pull request and say, and post a note saying, you won't be able to reset the pull request to generate a new sandbox. So you go ahead and you put a comment and ask for that. Anyways, I was hoping that I might be able to go ahead and get this reset right away, but I can't. So what this means is that that's really as far as we can go on this issue. But what we have potentially helped move this forward issue, this issue forward, because we have reminded the folks who were involved in this issue originally that it's still out there, it still needs some work, and that we or somebody else might be willing to test it if we could get a working sandbox. And hopefully they will do that for us. This is something I may be able to work on myself later, so I'll come back to it. In the meantime, it puts us back in the pull request queue looking for another issue to work on. I do have an issue picked out to look at, and it's called Allow Display Settings for Book Navigation. And basically, if you're familiar with the book module in Backdrop, what this issue has to do with it, well, the book module allows you to aggregate a bunch of pages into what's called a book. And a book has a little special navigation at the bottom that allows you to navigate forward and backward, page by page through the book, or up and down by section. And we'll take a look at that in a second to see what that looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do with this issue, and I know this has a working sandbox because I looked at it a minute ago, is I'm going to sort of scan through the issue. I picked this issue partly because, one, it's an understandable issue, also because it isn't very long. It only has about 8 or 9 comments, whereas some issues have up to 100 or more comments, and it can take you a little while to figure out what the status of the issue is. So the first thing I'm going to do in an issue like this is there are no screenshots. Well, there are some screenshots, but not enough for me to make absolutely clear what's going on. And I oftentimes want to see what does the problem look like before I do the test. So then I can test it with the pull request and see what happens. So what I like to do is go to backdropcms.org, just go to the front page, click on this demo backdrop button, which is going to take me here. I'm going to click on that button, which I already did, and that created a sandbox site for me, which is right here. So All About Kittens is a page that I went ahead and took a fresh backdrop site, but fortunately I know that the book module is not on by default. It's in core, but I had to go to the list modules page and turn it on. Sometimes this happens with both the sandboxes on backdropcms.org and the GitHub sandboxes. And we just have to wait a second for them to reload. So now I go here, I go to the book module, and we can see that I did go ahead and enable that before we got here. The other thing I did was I added a couple of pages and created a small book. And basically I created a book called My Backdrop Book with pages, views, and blocks, content types. And then I created an issue called Testing Issues in the Issue Queue, which is not a book page, but I wanted to include it in my book. And then I created another All About Kittens that has nothing to do with my book, so I could see what each of these look like. So if I go to My Backdrop Book, we can see that what this issue is about are these links at the bottom. This is the content. This is the home page for our book. And then it's showing me all the main pages in the book, and it's giving me some navigation. So I can navigate to the next page. And then on the next page, I now have the ability to navigate back to the previous page, go to the next page, or go back up to the top. I can jump around a bit. I can go to the third page. You can see this allows me to go back. Anyways, we have this various navigation. We also have a little link where I can add a new page to my book. Now, what the initial complainer of this issue is saying is that they might expect these links on book pages, but if they create a page like this testing the issue queue, which is not a book page, and they want to include it in the book outline, that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to have this navigation at the bottom. So basically, what the issue is asking for is, can we create a user interface that will allow me to turn that off? Okay. Now we're going to jump ahead and we're going to go ahead and click on the pull request over here for this issue. We're going to scroll down until we find the last. Sometimes there'll be more than one sandbox listed because some older sandboxes will still be open. I don't think that's happening anymore, but in the past it did. Anyways, I find the most recent sandbox if there's more than one, and I go ahead and I'm going to right click on it so that I can open it in a new window and keep this open. I'm going to copy the password, usually is what I do, just in case I'm not logged in. And here, this sandbox was sleeping, but now it's opened. I was logged into this sandbox a minute ago, so I still am. If I weren't, I could log in with the username and password provided right here. And now I have a working sandbox that is different from Backdrop Core in that it has the fix to this particular problem already submitted. I can go back to the issue, and as I kind of scroll through this, I see that there's some settings for books. And I know because I peeked earlier that we can find those settings here. Content, books, and there's a settings tab. And if I click on it, right away I see this option setting at the bottom, which I also saw in the screenshot for the issue. That was right here in this screenshot. So that looks to me like it's part of the fix. And then I can go back to my test site as sort of a control group. And I can go to books, and I can go to settings, and I can see that those settings aren't here. So the only settings we had before this pull request were these at the top, these content types allowed in book outlines and content types for child pages. And now what I can do is go here. I see we have these extra settings, and I can just sort of test them out. And so the first thing I'm going to do is sort of disable both of these links. Click Save. Go back to the home page. Well, actually go to the content page and click on one of the pages in my book, and I can see right away there aren't any navigation links below because I turned those off. I can go back to another page, also in the book. This is also not there. I could go to the book, edit orders and titles. Okay, and those are the only two pages, well, plus the main page in the book. But none of these have any of that navigation. So that seems to be working as expected. Now, my goal, unfortunately, is to kind of try and break this. I want to find bugs before they get committed to core. So I want to keep pushing this. I don't want to like really quickly say, hey, yeah, this works. I want to see if I can break it. And so I'm going to go back to books, go to the settings, and try whatever options I can. Let's add the child page. Save configure. Now I go to view one of the book pages, and I can see that add child page link is there, which wasn't there before. Build backdrop better. Well, all of these are in the. Oh, I keep hitting edit. I want to go to the view page. There's that there. So now let's go back to books and go to settings, and let's turn that off, but click display book navigation. Now there's two different options. the table of contents and the previous next links. And tell you what, we'll go ahead and turn both of those on. So now we should see all of those, but not the add child links. Okay, we're looking at the page. We see the previous and next. We weren't seeing the outline, and that I think is because the outline only shows up on some pages. I think it shows up on the main page. This is Build Backdrop Better. This is the main page for the book. But as we click on the others, we don't actually see the outline, but we do see the navigation. And now when we get back to the main page, we should see that again. We don't see the add child links. So on the whole, I think this is enough for me to say, you know what, this is working as expected. Now, again, depending on how much time I have, I might try harder to break this and find scenarios. Like one thing I did do was I did include, we have one child page that's a book page, and we have another child page that's a post or that's a regular backdrop page. So we've tried two different content types. I could also go to the regular page and make sure that none of the book stuff is showing up here, because this isn't part of the book, and it's not. And just think about anything else I could think of doing. I might try logging in as a different role to see if I can break it that way. But I want to do my best to sort of test and make sure this is working. For the purposes of this video, I think we're going to say it's good. So what I would normally do is go back to the issue now, and I would make a comment that says works for me. I might actually add some notes saying what I tested, So I tested X, Y, and Z. In this case, I'm not sure if that's that helpful. So I might do this. I'm not, and then what I would do is go up here and remove the needs testing. And if you don't have, if you're unable to change these labels, then just put a note in the issue queue saying that you were not able to change the labels. Sometimes when you first try to test issues, you won't have this permission, but then you'll get it quickly afterwards. Either we'll give it to you manually, or you might even get it automatically. I forget how that works, but I just know that you should be able to change the labels. And normally what I would do is take this needs testing and remove it, and I would add the PR works for me. There we go. And so those labels have been changed. And now the next step is somebody else has to come along and do a code review. And I am probably not the best person to do that code review. So I'm going to leave. I could do that if you or I have the PHP skills that we think we can do a competent code review, we should go ahead and do that. However, we won't talk about it. That can be another video. For my purposes, this is as far as I can go in this issue, and I need to leave it for someone else to do the code review and then for a core committer to commit it. We've taken kind of an old issue and moved it forward. Anyways, I think that is all we are going to do today. This is one example of how you can review a pull request in the core issue queue and help make Backdrop better.